Our civil servants are very disgracefully paid, and we want them to deliver a 21st century service to us in Lagos State. That's not going to happen at the sort of pay levels that we're offering them right now. So we're going to upgrade civil service pay very quickly. Secondly, we're going to be looking at traffic simultaneously at the same time. We're going to be looking at this traffic situation because we're spending too many man-hours in traffic. An average of 6 hours every day, every Lagosian spends going from home to work and from work to home. That's got to stop. We're going to introduce high-volume, high-speed passenger ferries that will also have roll-on, roll-off facilities all across Lagos. And thirdly, we'll be looking at power, because without power, we can do nothing. When God wanted to create the earth, he started with light. Let there be light. And light was, and then everything else came, after. So we're going to put light in a minimum of 8 local governments within 18 months as part of our Lagos Integrated Regeneration Plan, an emergency plan that we put together that will serve this administration going forward. Thank you.
In first 100 days, I will tackle the traffic problem of Lagos frontally. I will need to bring about easy solutions. Out of the 62 traffic gridlocks that you have identified, some are low-hanging that we can resolve within the first 60 days. Some are short to medium to long term. So within the first 60 days is to solve the ones that were low-hanging, about 20 or 22 of them. Within the first 100 days, like you said, I will tackle the gridlock in Apapa. I will need to clear up all the traffic, and all the trailers on top of Apapa. I will make sure that it's a nightmare and will not see that again. Within that same time, I will ensure that we engage the private sector. We have an international discourse where all of the stakeholders on the private sector, ensuring that the Lagos 21st century kicks off awareness, have an international discourse where we can set agenda for the next 4 years for us. Within that same space, I will bring about a town hall meeting to tell the public service that we have new ways that we will be engaging ourselves. Let us sit down and find out what are our issues. We are going to be making promises to Lagosian. Within that time frame, all of the issues that concern the public service, we will resolve it. Those 4 things we will critically resolve. And finally, I'll have the cabinet running within that first time.
I think first and foremost, as governor, is to let Lagos know that there's a new sheriff in town. And that means that it's going to be different leadership. That we're going to bring character to leadership. That is going to be leadership for the people and not for self. And that's something that's going to be important. And that means that you're going to carry everybody along to bring about best practices. And then we're looking at traffic. Again, we must address traffic. That is very, very important at this point in time. Traffic in terms of the immediate, of looking at our potholes that create so much unnecessary traffic. Looking even at our traffic lights. Our traffic lights are working on the old system of every 1 minute, every 30 seconds. We must begin to bring technology even to traffic lights, where they're using radar to know in which way traffic is heavy and not, and is able to adjust accordingly. We're going to have to strengthen to get LASMA to work and work efficiently. Of course, waste becomes an issue. Again, we're talking of waste in terms of the 3 R's, in terms of recovery, in terms of recycling and reusing. Recover is the aspect where we have to get waste from the point of use right down to the to disposal. And of course, lastly, will be power. We have to begin to have power in Lagos in a way that Lagosians will not have a problem with power.
We need a train system to reduce the situation of traffic in Lagos. And of course, my colleague here did mention of potholes. There are a lot of bad roads, and these bad roads are results of imposition. When someone imposes people at the grassroots level of Lagos State, the loyalty of those who are imposed there changes from the loyalty to the people to the loyalty to the individual, particularly if that person that imposed them there retains the right to remove them. And that is why all the neighborhoods in Lagos today are not something to write home about.
You need to get the local governments working again. Because if you want to address potholes, then you have to have a local government. It's not from Ikeja that you determine where potholes are in the suburbs of Lagos State. And that's very important. But going to mid and long term, the way it works is that you've got to plan ahead. I'll give a good example. We have a refinery coming up on the Lekki axis, and there's no provision yet for what is going to happen to lift products from there. So if we're not careful, we're going to have another gridlock like we have in Apapa. Now, it's also important that we understand that urban planning, town planning, does have an effect. Now, the idea is to have even development across Lagos State, so that you're having less of movement from one end of Lagos to the other. And a very good way to address this is, you find that when our children are on holidays, there's less traffic because there's less movement about. And it's in that way that you have to look at the different parts of Lagos and make them self-containing, serving, so that you don't need to do that. And naturally, Lagos is still one of the 2 mega cities in this world that does not have a transport system, a rail system that is working. That is no longer acceptable. We must get that going. Then we must go into the idea of multi-layered roads, because there's little to what you can do to expand our roads. Let's begin to have multi-tiered roads.
I think the solution is what we call an internodal transportation system that takes care of the waterways, that takes care of the rail, and takes care of the roads. Good enough for the rail, it's work in progress. There's a blue line that is coming up. There's a red line whose alignment too, in conjunction with the federal government, has finally been agreed. So I'm expecting that within the next 2 years, at least we'll have rail tracks on the blue line, which is from Okokomaiko to Marina, 28 kilometers. And we'll have another red line from Ebutemeta to Agege, which is another 36 or 37 kilometers. Combining that is to do the waterways. We've got 5 jetties, terminals that we've built now. If we can do 2 more and have us bring about higher capacity ferries, not the type we have now that are doing only 20, 22 passengers. If we can bring in ferries that can do 50 to 100 at once and talk to the ferry services on both directional traffic, we will do that. The third one will be the BRT, which have started, right? And try and increase capacity. Try and see if we can bring about a CKD plant where vehicles, those kind of articulated buses will be produced here. So by the time you combine the 3, the rail working well, the waterways work.
The obvious one is rail. Secondly, barges. Barges to lift containers from the actual wharfs and take them to lighter terminals all around Lagos. Take them to lighter terminals all around Lagos. And then, thirdly, devolution. Devolution of powers. It's time we started this discussion about restructuring Nigeria. And the port, being in Lagos, and us losing that much revenue, is unconscionable. I'm not having it. So first thing we're going to do is copy the Ethiopians and build a heavy rail line, the length of Lagos State, from Badagry all the way to Odeomi, with branches going off to every exit point by road of Lagos. And the point with this is that all of these exit points must have container terminals where the trains will pass through Apapa and Ibafor and deposit their goods at those container terminals, so that people coming from out of state, which is quite common, will not clog up the roads in Lagos with their trailers. Number two, Apapa is one of the Lagos Integrated Regeneration Plan local governments, 8 of them that we've selected. And we're going to be pouring in the money that Alpha Beta is currently taking into that project to make sure that we regenerate that. Thank you.